Hi, my name is Junior Valdez. I am a postgraduate medical intern from VSMMC in Cebu. I'm currently in my hometown, Iligan City. I arrived a few hours ago via ship because there's no available flights yet. So I'm required to finish a 14-day home quarantine. So yeah, I have no choice but to do self-isolation in the four corners of my parents' room. So I'm not allowed to like get close to them, to any family member or to any person at all. I'm not allowed to leave this place until I am certain that I don't have the virus, that I don't show any symptoms typical of the virus. A lot of my friends asked me when they saw my stories on IG about how was I able to get home because they also want to leave Cebu City before it gets worse. Well, actually, the purpose of this video is me recapping on the, what I went through, like all the process, the permits, what to do, where to go, who to ask, the requirements and everything, and some tips. Thus, for the benefit of those who plan to go to their hometowns, for those who are trapped in the big cities, I'm gonna tell you my whole experience from getting all the permits, traveling, getting assessed by the IATAF, to being escorted by the barangay officials towards my house. So, without further ranting, let's get started. My place was near Redemptorist Church in Barangay Campo Tao. I started working on my papers last week of May, I think. At that time, the city was still under ECQ, so I had no choice but to endure long walks just for me to arrive at the barangay hall, which is about 20-minute walk or so. Once there, they'll give you this registration form, which you need to have 3 photocopies of it. Fill this out. Once done, give it to the guy behind the information desk. They'll tell you to wait for a few days and they'll give you a text message once all your papers are done. Sounds plain and simple. In fact, I've heard some people who applied ahead of me got their papers in a matter of 2 to 3 days, probably because at that time few people were applying. In my case, I didn't get any text message for about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. So I got really anxious. Fast forward to June 9, ACQ has been lifted. I went back. The people applying has doubled in number. I asked for my papers. They said they're not done yet, so they gave me contact numbers instead. I was worried that the ECQ might be lifted, so I decided to go to a municipality outside of Cebu in Consolacion because I heard it's way easier there. My sisters just bought a new house there, and that's where I was living after the start of the pandemic. I went to Barangay Kasili and posted on their wall are the requirements that you need to do. Here, it's different because you're the one doing all of the steps one by one. A woman just asked me a few personal information. She typed it down, and in less than 2 minutes, she handed over a barangay certificate, which is pretty fast. Then I went straight to the health center and ticked some boxes, truthfully, of course. The woman told me to just come back the next day because the doctor already left, and by 11 a.m. tomorrow, I'll get my medical certificate. And true to her words, the woman gave it to me, like no delays or whatever. Just across the street is the municipal hall. At the legal office, I gave my barangay clearance and medical certificate. The guard told me to just come back after lunchtime and they'll give me my notice of availability of travel. Few meters away from the municipal hall, I went to the PNP station and gave them photocopies of my medical certificate and the one I got from the legal office. The officer assigned at the front desk took my papers and told me to just be back in 2 hours, which is really, really fast. And by 4 p.m. the same day, I finally got my travel authority. Now listen, 9 days ago, I already contacted the people from Iligan City Tourism Office and I got a text basically telling me to fill out 2 forms. So the first form is just basic information like name, address, contact number. For Form 2, you only fill this out once you get all of the requirements, because on page 2, that's where you're going to upload your valid ID, medical clearance, 14-day quarantine, including the departure request form. They provided a link on the upper portion. Download it, provide the necessary information, and once you're done, upload it together with the rest of the files. The day after I got all of my requirements, I rode a taxi and went to Cocalyong Tower in Cebu City to get a ticket. June 12th, there was still no available flights, so I had no choice but to sail the ocean. Well, the good thing about Cocalyong Tower is, aside from boasting that they are one of the cleanest ships in the country, I like the fact that they no longer make stopovers in Manila. So in my case, after Ozamis Port, we go directly to Iligan, which is very, very convenient. On that day, the limited 1,600 pesos cabin accommodation was already full, so I opted for the cheaper one, the tourist accommodation, which only cost me 1,200. Later, we found out that it's better if you go for the tourist accommodation because there's more space and you could really practice social distancing instead of going to the cabin where there are 6 of you cramped in one small room. On the day of my departure, I woke up early in the morning in Consolacion, went outside to see the neighborhood and assess the situation because apparently just days ago there were 2 to 3 positive cases in our area just blocks away from our house. In fact, there are already Brega officials stationed in the area just to make sure that everything's under control, that there is no panic or whatsoever. I said goodbye to our dog, Mosby. Hello there. Before 2 p.m., I was already in the taxi with my bags on my way to Pier 1. The earliest boarding time is at 3 p.m. I arrived at the pier at 3 p.m. It's so freaking hot, so just a tip, always bring water, stay hydrated, and also if you could, you buy food or dinner outside because the food in the ship is quite pricey. An hour after my batchmates arrived, some of our friends couldn't join us because their papers aren't done yet. So, word of advice, as early as possible, start processing your permits. We met up with some of our friends who were there to send their cargoes via same ship. We said our goodbyes and went inside. We hired a porter to carry our luggage for us. Our bags were scanned inside the x-ray machines and then we hopped into our port shuttle. After a bucket full of sweat, we got settled in the cabin of my friends. We stayed there for a few minutes, freshened up a bit, and then went outside, relaxed at the lounge area until a crew told us that nobody was allowed there because that's where the crew members retire in the evening. Later that night, we climbed towards the roof deck where we ate our dinner. There, we also catch a last glimpse of the Queen City of the South. The next morning, we were greeted by a very beautiful blue sky. The ocean was so calm. We docked at Ozamis Port at exactly 6 a.m., and the LSIs around that area were dropped off. By 8 a.m., the ship sailed again. We were just 2 hours away from the port of Iligan. We were so excited. Unlike in Cebu, they don't allow porters to carry your bags in Iligan City, so you're on your own. You're going to carry everything. Fortunately, there were 2 crew members who were gentlemen enough to carry our bags for us, so in return, we gave them money for the kind gesture. So in the holding area, they will assess you per batch. So we were the first 10 people. Our temperatures were taken, our bags were disinfected. They still asked us the same basic personal information. They gave us alcohol to rub on our hands. After that, we were placed in a truck along with our bags, drove us to Iligan City National High School, where we will be further assessed and screened. It was already 12 noon. Most of us were hungry. Unfortunately, the free food hasn't arrived yet, and the doctor was also not around at that time. They offered water instead. My batchmate had to call her dad to bring food good for 4 people. The funny thing is, after we ate, the food arrived, like, instantly. Another form was given to us. This time it's more detailed. Past 1 p.m., we were still waiting for the doctor. It started pouring. It was raining so hard, and still more locally stranded individuals from Iligan Airport were arriving. Surprisingly, a few minutes later, the transport service of the barangay where I live showed up way too early. They told me that they received a call telling them that they should come over to fetch me up. Unfortunately, I'm still not screened at that time, so they had to wait for a while. By 1:30 p.m., the doctor finally arrived. Only then did the nurses started preparing the venue inside the gym. By this time, you can feel the irritation from the crowd. People are getting impatient. Our names were called one by one. We were seated few feet from each other. They took vital signs, our blood pressure, heart rate, and temperature. There were 2 doctors assigned at that time doing further assessments, listening to our lungs, examining our mouths, asking health related questions. So after that, I wasn't tested. One personnel told me that they only conduct rapid testing to people who have symptoms. In our case, we were just required to strictly comply with the 14-day home quarantine. And we were also given this one piece of paper which has some information of what to do while on home quarantine. Oh, I also saw 2 people doing some fumigations in the venue before I left. By 5 p.m., I'm officially cleared. I was released from the venue, and one barangay official escorted me and drove me directly to my house, safe and sound.